They kept saying, "Family helps family," while I helped pay my golden sister's mortgage. But when I asked for help while I was about to lose my business, they all ghosted me. When I survived and my business started booming, suddenly they wanted back because family helps family. So I shut them down real quick. My name is Frances, and I'm 36 years old. For most of my life, I believed in the phrase family helps family because that's what my parents drilled into me from childhood. What I didn't realize until much later was that this rule only seemed to apply when I was the one doing the helping. I run a small digital marketing agency in Portland. Nothing flashy, but it pays the bills. I started it 5 years ago in a converted warehouse downtown with 2 employees, Jessica and David. We help local businesses establish their online presence. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, and I'm good at it. My sister Caroline is 3 years younger and has always been the family star. Where I'm methodical and quiet, she's charismatic and bold. Where I chose steady work and gradual growth, she swung for the fences with big dreams and bigger risks. Our parents celebrated this difference, calling her ambitious and driven, while describing me as reliable and practical, words that sound like compliments but feel like consolation prizes. Growing up, the favoritism was obvious. Caroline got fancy dance lessons while I got hand-me-down soccer cleat. She got a new car for her 16th birthday. I inherited Dad's temperamental pickup truck. Her graduation party was a catered affair with 50 guests. Mine was a backyard barbecue with hamburgers and store-bought cake. The message was clear. Caroline was special, and I was steady. Caroline works in real estate. At least she did when the market was good. She's the type who can sell ice to an Eskimo, which served her well during the boom years. She bought a beautiful 4-bedroom house with granite countertops, drove a leased new BMW, and lived the lifestyle that made our parents beam with pride at family gatherings. Every Sunday dinner became Caroline's showcase. She'd regale us with stories of million-dollar listings and celebrity clients, while our parents hung on every word. When I shared updates about my business, conversations would shift back to Caroline within minutes. "That's nice, Frances," Mom would say when I mentioned landing a new client. "Caroline, tell us more about that waterfront property." I was the steady one, the backup plan, the reliable foundation, and for years, I accepted that role without question, not realizing that foundations get walked on and eventually taken for granted. The trouble started years ago when the real estate market cooled. Caroline's income dropped dramatically, and suddenly those big risks didn't look so smart. The mortgage became a nightmare. BMW payments turned stressful. And for the first time in her adult life, Caroline faced real financial pressure. I noticed the change during Sunday dinners. Caroline, who usually dominated conversations, became quiet and withdrawn. She'd pick at her food and check her phone constantly, her confidence replaced by anxious energy. The crisis hit when Caroline showed up at my apartment unannounced one October evening. She stood outside in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, a far cry from her usual polish. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. She collapsed on my second-hand couch, looking around my modest apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. "Frances, I'm in trouble. Financial trouble. I haven't closed a deal in 3 months. I'm behind on everything. Mortgage, car payments, credit cards." She showed me a spreadsheet on her phone. The numbers were brutal, nearly $20,000 in arrears with the bank already sending default notices. "I need $15,000 just to bring the mortgage current," she said, eyes welling up, "or I'm going to lose the house." We talked for 2 hours. I helped her prioritize debts and ran my own numbers the next morning. My business was stable, savings healthy. I could help, but it would mean putting my expansion plans on hold. That's when the family meeting started. The first Sunday dinner felt different, more formal, like a board meeting. Mom made Caroline's favorite pot roast. Dad opened special wine. They were trying to be supportive, but tension filled the room. "I need $15,000 to avoid foreclosure," Caroline finally said, voice breaking. After discussing her depleted savings and exhausted options, that familiar silence fell. Our parents exchanged glances. They were comfortable, but not wealthy. $15,000 was significant money for them. That's when all eyes turned to me. Frances, my mother said in that gentle tone she used when she wanted something. Your business has been doing well, hasn't it? I shifted uncomfortably. It's doing okay. We're growing steadily. I didn't mention that growing steadily meant I was barely breaking even most months, plowing every extra dollar back into the business. Family helps family, my father added, deploying the golden rule like a moral weapon. Caroline would do the same for you if the situation were reversed. Would she, I wondered? When I was starting my business and working 18-hour days while living on instant ramen, where was her support? When I couldn't afford to replace my broken laptop and was doing design work on a machine that crashed every 20 minutes, where was her offer to help? But looking at Caroline's tear-stained face, those thoughts felt petty. She was still my little sister. How much would you need each month? I asked. Her head snapped up, hope flooding her features. The mortgage is $3,200 a month. If you could help with half of that, just temporarily, I could manage the rest. $1,600 a month. I did quick mental calculations. My rent was $1,200. Business expenses $2,000. Personal expenses maybe $800 if I was careful. It would be tight, but manageable. And this would be temporary, I asked. 6 months max, Caroline said quickly. The market always recovers. I just need to get through this rough patch. The weight of their expectations settled on my shoulders like a familiar burden. Okay, I said, I can help. The relief was palpable. Caroline burst into tears and hugged me while my parents beamed with pride. For a moment, I felt like the hero of the story. This means everything to me, Caroline whispered. I won't forget this, ever. That was the beginning of a 2.5-year arrangement that nearly destroyed my business. The first few months weren't terrible. I set up automatic transfers, and Caroline seemed to be trying hard, calling with updates on potential deals that always seemed promising, but never materialized. I've got 3 properties going to market, she'd tell me during check-ins. One of them is definitely going to close. But months turned into seasons, and the big sales never came. Every sure thing fell through. Financing collapsed. Inspections revealed problems. Buyers got cold feet. The temporary $1,600 became $1,800 when she needed roof repairs. Then $2,000 when property taxes came due. It's just this once, she promised. It's actually saving money in the long run. By month 8, I felt the real strain. Jessica had been asking about a raise. She'd been with me 2 years and deserved it. David needed new software costing $300 monthly. I had to tell them both to wait. The reliable daughter was slowly going broke while keeping her sister's dream house afloat. The worst part was turning down opportunities to expand. A local brewery wanted us to handle their complete rebranding. A project that would have been worth $15,000, but I couldn't take it on because I didn't have the cash flow to hire the freelance photographer and videographer we'd need. A tech startup offered us a retainer that would have provided steady monthly income, but I had to decline because I couldn't afford to hire the additional staff to service the account properly. Every month, as I transferred $1,600 or more to Caroline, I watched potential growth slip away. My business was treading water instead of swimming forward, and I was starting to feel resentful about it. But every time I considered bringing it up with Caroline, she'd call with news of another almost deal that was surely going to come through next month. When my own office lease came up for renewal after a year of supporting Caroline, the landlord wanted to increase the rent by $400 a month. In a normal year, I would have been able to absorb the increase or negotiate from a position of strength. Instead, I had to beg for a smaller increase and agree to sign a 3-year lease to get it. Business must be tough, the landlord commented as we signed the paperwork. Usually, tenants in your position are looking to expand, not lock in longer terms to avoid increases. He was right. Of course, my business should have been expanding. Instead, Caroline's crisis had become my crisis, and her temporary problem had become my permanent limitation. But every time I brought up the subject with Caroline, she had a new excuse and a new promise. The market was taking longer to recover than anyone expected. Interest rates were affecting buyer behavior. The election was making people cautious about major purchases. There was always a reason why this month was different, why next month would be better. Meanwhile, our parents continued to praise both of us at family gatherings. Caroline for working so hard during difficult times, and me for being such a good sister. The praise felt hollow, especially when I noticed that they never asked Caroline when she planned to start paying me back. But they regularly asked me how my business was doing, always with the clear subtext of whether I could continue supporting her. "You're doing such a good thing," Mom would tell me privately. "I know it's not easy, but Caroline really needs this. She'll turn things around soon. Family helps family," Dad would add. Whenever I looked tired or stressed, that's what we do for each other. But I started to notice that the help only seemed to flow in one direction. When I mentioned that I was looking for new clients, no one offered to make introductions. When I talked about the challenges of growing a small business, the conversation would quickly shift to Caroline's struggles, which were apparently more pressing and deserving of sympathy. The breaking point came in month 18, just as winter was turning to spring in Portland. I was in the middle of what should have been the biggest opportunity of my career. A large tech company, Novate Solutions, had approached me about handling their complete digital marketing overhaul. They were launching a new product line and needed everything from brand positioning to social media campaigns to website redesign. It was a six-figure contract that would have transformed my business and set me up for years of growth. But to handle a client that size, I needed to expand quickly. I needed new equipment, additional software licenses, upgraded internet service, and most importantly, I needed to hire at least 3 new employees immediately. The math was brutal, but simple. I could either keep supporting Caroline or I could seize this opportunity. I couldn't do both. The Novatech project manager, a sharp woman named Lisa, was clear about the timeline. "We need to know by Friday if you can handle this scope," she told me during our final meeting. "We've got other agencies interested, but your portfolio impressed us. The question is whether you have the bandwidth." I went home that night and spread all my financial records across my kitchen table. Bank statements, business expenses, Caroline's payment history, everything laid out in stark black and white. The numbers didn't lie. Between Caroline's monthly payments and my limited cash reserves, I couldn't afford to hire the staff I needed for the Novatech contract. I couldn't even afford the equipment upgrades, let alone the payroll. But I also couldn't afford to pass up this opportunity. Novate wasn't just a big contract. It was the kind of client that would establish my agency as a serious player in the market. Other companies would take notice. My existing employees would finally get the raises and career advancement they deserved. I could move to a better office, invest in better technology, maybe even start working fewer than 60 hours a week. The choice was between Caroline's comfort and my future, between my family's expectations and my own dreams, between being the reliable daughter who always puts others first, and being the business owner who makes hard decisions for the greater good. I called a family meeting. We gathered again at my parents' house on a Sunday, but this time the energy was different. I was the one who looked stressed, and Caroline seemed more relaxed than she'd been in months. She'd just signed a new client and was optimistic about her prospects. She was wearing a new dress, nothing expensive, but new nonetheless, and her hair was professionally styled. "I need to talk to everyone about the arrangement with Caroline," I said, cutting straight to the point. Caroline's smile faltered slightly. "What about it?" "It's been 18 months now, and I have a situation with my business. I've got an opportunity that could change everything, but I need capital to make it happen. I need to redirect the money I've been sending Caroline toward this expansion." The room went quiet. My parents looked uncomfortable, and Caroline's face had gone pale. The pleasant family dinner atmosphere evaporated instantly. "What kind of opportunity?" Dad asked, his accountant's brain immediately focusing on the numbers. I explained the Novate situation in detail, the scope of work, the potential revenue, the expansion requirements. I showed them the contract proposal on my phone, let them see the dollar amounts involved. By any objective measure, this was the chance I'd been working toward for 5 years. "How long would you need to stop the payments?" Mom asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Permanently," I said. "This was supposed to be temporary, remember? 6 months max. It's been 3 times that long." Caroline leaned forward, her voice rising. "Francis, you can't just cut me off. I still need help. The market's improving, but I'm not there yet. I've got deals in the pipeline that are going to close soon." "You've had deals in the pipeline for 1.5 years," I said, trying to keep my frustration in check. "I understand that the market is tough, but I can't carry both of us indefinitely. This contract could set my business up for years. It's not just about me. I'll be able to hire people, create jobs, contribute more to the economy." My father frowned. "But Caroline will lose her house if you stop helping." And I'll lose my business if I don't take this opportunity. I've already had to turn down smaller contracts because I don't have the resources to handle them properly. My employees haven't gotten raises in 2 years because I don't have the cash flow. I'm stunting my own growth to maintain Caroline's lifestyle. That last phrase hung in the air like an accusation, which maybe it was. Caroline's face flushed red. Lifestyle? She snapped. You think I'm living some kind of luxury lifestyle? I'm barely keeping my head above water. You're keeping your $3,200 mortgage and your BMW lease, I shot back. When my business was struggling to get off the ground, I lived in a studio apartment and drove a 15-year-old Honda. I made sacrifices to build something sustainable. That's different, Mom interjected. You were young and single. Caroline has responsibilities, commitments. What about my responsibilities? What about my commitments to my employees, to my clients, to my own future? That's when Caroline played her trump card. The phrase that had controlled my decisions for so long. Family helps family, Frances. You've always said that. You can't just abandon me when I need you most. There it was again, the golden rule, but this time being used against me like a weapon. I looked around the table and saw the same expectation in everyone's eyes that I'd seen my entire life. I was supposed to sacrifice my opportunity for Caroline's stability. I was supposed to be the reliable one, the practical one, the one who put family first, no matter the cost to myself. What if I could find investors for your expansion? Caroline suggested desperately. I know people in real estate development. They have money, and they're always looking for good investment opportunities. I shook my head. I can't wait for May. This opportunity has a timeline. The client needs an answer by Friday. Either I can afford to expand or I can't. Either I take this contract or someone else does. But if you just give me a few more months, Caroline pressed, I know things will turn around. I can feel it. The market's shifting, and I've got several hot prospects. You've been saying that for 18 months, I said, my voice harder than I intended. How many more months? How many more almost deals that fall through at the last minute? How long am I supposed to put my life on hold? The meeting ended without resolution, but the pressure was clear. I was being asked to choose between my family's approval and my business's future. The choice, when I really thought about it, wasn't as hard as I'd expected it to be. That Thursday night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling of my small bedroom. My laptop was open beside me, showing the Novatech contract for the 100th time. 6 figures, a chance to finally build the business I'd dreamed of, security for my employees, a future that wasn't dependent on scraping by month to month. I thought about Caroline, about the house she'd bought at the peak of the market, about the dreams she'd chased without considering the risks. I thought about my parents, about their disappointment when I inevitably let them down. I thought about the golden rule that had shaped my entire life. Family helps family. But for the first time, I asked myself a different question. Who was helping me? When Caroline needed money, the entire family mobilized to support her. When I needed understanding, support, or even just acknowledgement of my sacrifice, where was that same energy? When I talked about my business challenges, was anyone offering to help, or were they just making sure I could continue being Caroline's solution? I realized that family helps family had always meant Frances helps family. Everyone else was family. I was the help. Friday morning, I called Lisa Chen at Novatech. I'll take the contract. That afternoon, I called Caroline and told her that the monthly payments would end with the next one. I offered to help her find other solutions, to look at her budget together, to brainstorm alternatives. But the money had to stop. You're abandoning me, she said, her voice cold with anger. After everything our family has done for you, this is how you repay us. What has our family done for me, Caroline? I asked quietly. I've been supporting you for 18 months. When did you last support me? She hung up on me. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with calls and texts. My mother was disappointed in my selfishness and couldn't believe I was choosing money over family. My father thought I was making a huge mistake and forgetting what family means. Caroline sent a series of increasingly angry messages accusing me of abandoning her when she needed me most, and caring more about money than the people who loved me. But the most telling response came from my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, who'd always been on the periphery of our family drama. She called that evening, and I expected another guilt trip. I heard about your decision, she said. Yeah, I'm sure you did. Good for you. That stopped me short. What? I said good for you. It's about time someone in this family told Caroline that actions have consequences. Linda went on to tell me things I'd never known. how Caroline had borrowed money from her 2 years ago and never paid it back, how she'd promised to help their cousin's son with college connections but never followed through, how she'd taken credit for organizing their mother's funeral arrangements when Linda had done all the work. "Your parents have spoiled her rotten," Linda said bluntly, "and they've taken advantage of your good nature for too long. Family helps family. Well, when was the last time anyone in this family helped you?" After we hung up, I sat in my empty apartment and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. For the first time in my adult life, I'd made a decision based on what was best for me, not what was expected of me. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. The worst part was the silence that followed. After the initial barrage of angry communications, my family went quiet. No more Sunday dinners. No more casual check-in calls. No more family group chat messages. I'd been effectively ghosted by the people who'd spent my entire life telling me that family was the most important thing. The irony wasn't lost on me. When they needed my help, family was everything. When I needed their understanding, I was suddenly on my own. But I had work to do. The Novatech contract was everything I'd hoped for, but scaling up quickly while managing cash flow was incredibly challenging. I worked 18-hour days, lived on coffee and determination, and slowly built the team I needed to deliver on my promises. My first hire was Sarah, a brilliant social media strategist who'd been freelancing for various agencies. She was expensive, more than I'd ever paid anyone before, but worth every penny. Next came Miguel, a web developer whose portfolio made my old work look amateurish. Finally, I brought on Tom, a project manager who could juggle multiple campaigns without breaking a sweat. The first few months were brutal, learning to manage a larger team, coordinating complex campaigns, dealing with the growing pains of expansion. It all happened while I was still processing the emotional fallout from cutting off my family. There were nights when I questioned my decision. Caroline's house did go into foreclosure, and I heard through mutual friends that she'd had to move back in with our parents. Part of me felt guilty, but a larger part of me was angry that my family couldn't understand why I'd made the choice I did. I threw myself into work with a focus I'd never had before. Maybe it was spite, maybe it was determination, or maybe it was just the realization that I was truly on my own for the first time in my life. Whatever it was, it worked. The Novatech client was thrilled with our work. Their product launch exceeded all expectations, and they credited our campaigns as a major factor in their success. They extended our contract and referred us to other companies in their network. Word spread in Portland's business community that my agency was the one to watch. Within 6 months, we'd moved to a larger office space in a trendy part of downtown. Within a year, my 3-person team had grown to 8 employees. We invested in top-tier equipment, subscribed to premium software suites, and started winning awards for our campaigns. By year 2, after cutting off Caroline's payments, we were one of the fastest-growing digital marketing agencies in the Pacific Northwest. I was featured in Portland Business Journal, invited to speak at marketing conferences, and fielding calls from companies wanting to acquire my agency. The business I'd nearly sacrificed to support Caroline was now worth more than I'd ever dreamed possible. My employees were thriving too. Jessica, who'd been patient about her raise request, was now my creative director with a salary that reflected her contributions. David had become our lead developer and was building cutting-edge websites that other agencies tried to copy. Sarah, Miguel, and Tom had all been promoted as we'd grown, and each of them was earning more than I'd made in my best year before the expansion. We'd become the kind of agency that attracted the best talent, retained great employees, and delivered work that genuinely made a difference for our clients. I was proud of what we'd built, but more than that, I was proud of the decision that had made it possible. And that's when my phone started ringing again. The first call came from my mother on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. It was one of those crisp fall days in Portland when the leaves are just starting to turn. And I was in my corner office reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant told me I had a personal call. "Frances, honey, it's Mom." Her voice was different, warmer than it had been in 2 years, like the way she used to talk to me when I was a child, and she needed me to do chores or help with something around the house. "Hi, Mom. I saw the article about your company in Portland Business Journal. We're so proud of you." I waited for more, but she seemed to expect a response. "Thanks. The photos of your new office are just beautiful and 8 employees. I had no idea you'd grown so much." "Yeah, it's been a busy couple of years." Listen, I was hoping we could all get together. It's been too long since we've seen you. Caroline's been asking about you constantly. She feels terrible about how things ended between you two. I leaned back in my ergonomic office chair, a far cry from the folding chair I'd used when I was sending Caroline $1,600 a month, and looked out at the Portland skyline. 2 years ago, I would have jumped at the chance for reconciliation. Now, I felt nothing but suspicion. Has she? Of course. She never stopped caring about you. We all miss you terribly. What do you want, Mom? Can a mother want to see her daughter? We were hoping you might come to Sunday dinner this weekend. Like old times. Like old times when I was useful. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. The calls continued throughout the week, each one more transparent than the last. Caroline left a voicemail saying she was so sorry and that she never meant for things to get so messed up between us. She talked about how proud she was of my success and how she'd always known I'd make it big someday. My father sent a text about being proud of my accomplishments and wanting to put the past behind us where it belongs. He mentioned that he'd been telling his clients about my agency's success and how he'd always known I was destined for great things. Even my Aunt Ruth, who I'd barely spoken to in 5 years, reached out to say the family missed me and that everyone was talking about my business success. The transparency of it all would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see what they thought they could accomplish, what their strategy was for getting back into my good graces. So I agreed to Sunday dinner. Walking into my parents' house felt like stepping back in time. The same furniture, the same smells from my mother's kitchen, the same family photos on the mantel, including several new ones of Caroline that had been added since I'd last been there. Notably absent were any pictures of me or my business success, despite Mom's claimed pride in my achievements. Caroline was there when I arrived, and she looked different, older, more worn down. The confidence and spark that had always defined her seemed dimmed, replaced by a nervous energy that reminded me of how she'd looked during her worst financial struggles. She hugged me awkwardly and mumbled another apology. I'm so sorry, Frances, about everything. I know I handled things badly, and I've regretted it every day for 2 years. Dinner was a careful dance of small talk and forced cheer. They asked about my business, but in vague, surface-level ways that made it clear they'd done some research but didn't really understand what I did. Nobody mentioned the previous 2 years or the contracts that had gone unanswered. It was as if they thought we could just pretend the separation had never happened. Mom had made pot roast, the same meal she'd served the night Caroline first asked for help. Dad opened a bottle of wine, probably the same brand he'd served that night too. The symbolism felt deliberate, like they were trying to recreate the family harmony that had existed before everything fell apart. Your new office sounds amazing, Caroline said as we sat down to eat. I drove by it last week. Very impressive location. You drove by? She blushed slightly. I was in the area for a client meeting. The building is beautiful. You must be doing very well to afford space downtown. After dessert, Caroline's favorite chocolate cake, just like old times, my father cleared his throat in the way he always did when he was about to deliver a speech or make an important announcement. Frances, we want you to know how sorry we are about how things went 2 years ago. We were all under a lot of stress, and we didn't handle the situation as well as we should have. Families should stick together through difficulties. I nodded but didn't respond. The apology felt rehearsed, like they'd practiced it beforehand. Caroline spoke up, her voice earnest. I especially want to apologize. I know I took advantage of your generosity, and I'm grateful for everything you did for me. I should have been more understanding about your business needs. Are you? I asked. She looked surprised by the question. Of course I am. You saved my credit, kept me from bankruptcy. I'll never forget that. Then why did it take my business becoming successful for you to reach out? Why now, after 2 years of silence? The table went quiet. My mother tried to smooth things over with her practiced diplomacy. We just needed time to process everything, honey. Family disagreements are hard, and sometimes people need space to heal. Family disagreements, I repeated slowly. Is that what we're calling it? My father leaned forward, using his reasonable business owner voice. The important thing is that we're all here now. Family is family, and we want to move forward together. And there it was again. Family is family. The phrase that had controlled my decisions for so long, now being deployed to erase 2 years of abandonment. Caroline reached across the table toward me, her movements calculated and deliberate. I've been thinking a lot about what you said before about finding investors for business expansion. Well, now that your company is doing so well, maybe we could work together in some capacity. I've been developing some ideas for real estate ventures that might benefit from digital marketing expertise. And with your success and industry connections, the pieces fell into place with startling clarity. This wasn't about reconciliation or family healing. This was a business pitch disguised as an apology. They'd read about my success, done the math on what I was probably earning now, and decided it was time to rebuild our relationship. Not because they missed me, but because I might be useful again. I stared at Caroline for a long moment, then started laughing. Not a happy laugh, but the kind of bitter laughter that comes when you realize how completely you've been played. You think I'm here to invest in your next venture? Not invest exactly, Caroline said quickly, her carefully prepared pitch stumbling over my reaction. More like a partnership, a family business collaboration. You have the marketing expertise and business connections. I have the real estate knowledge and client relationships. We could help each other. My mother nodded enthusiastically. It would be wonderful to have you two working together. Caroline has such innovative ideas, and you have the experience and resources to make them happen. It could be perfect. Like family helping family, Dad added, bringing the conversation full circle. I stood up from the table slowly. The same table where I'd agreed to help Caroline 2.5 years ago. The same table where I'd been made to feel guilty for prioritizing my own business survival. The same chairs where my family had sat in judgment of my choices and found me wanting. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, I said, my voice calm but firm. When Caroline needed help, family was everything. When I needed understanding and support to save my business, I was selfish and greedy. Now that my business is successful, suddenly we're family again. And you want me to fund Caroline's next venture. That's not how it was, my mother protested, but her voice lacked conviction. That's exactly how it was. I gave Caroline over $30,000 across 18 months. When I needed to stop so I could save my own business, you all cut me off completely. No calls, no visits, no support, nothing. Caroline's face was flushed. We were hurt and angry. You abandoned me when I needed you most, right when I was starting to get back on my feet. I abandoned you? I supported you for 1.5 years longer than we originally agreed. I sacrificed opportunities for my own business to keep your house afloat. I turned down contracts, delayed hiring, put my employees' raises on hold, all so you could maintain your lifestyle. And when I finally had to choose between your comfort and my survival, you disappeared. My father tried to intervene, using the same patronizing tone he'd used when I was a child. Daughter, we all made mistakes. Let's not relitigate the past. What matters is moving forward as a family. The past? I turned to face him directly. Dad, you taught me that family helps family. That was your rule, your moral standard that shaped how I understood relationships and loyalty. But apparently that only applies when I'm the one helping. When I needed my family's understanding and emotional support during the most challenging period of my career, where were you? We needed time, my mother said weakly, recycling her earlier excuse. 2 years of time, right up until you read about my success in a magazine. The room was silent, except for the ticking of my mother's antique clock and the distant hum of the dishwasher. I looked around the table at their faces, embarrassed, defensive, calculating. These people had shaped my understanding of family loyalty, and now I was seeing it for what it really was, a one-way street that ran straight to their benefit. Caroline, I said, my voice softer now, but no less firm. Do you know what happened to my business after I stopped supporting you? She shook her head, and I could see in her eyes that she genuinely didn't know. None of them had cared enough to ask. It almost failed. Not because the work wasn't good, but because I'd been bleeding money for so long that I didn't have the resources to handle growth when it came. I worked 18-hour days for months. I ate ramen noodles for dinner, more nights than I can count. I had to let go of my apartment and sleep in my office for 3 months to save money for payroll and equipment. Her face paled. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask. None of you did. You were all so focused on what I'd taken away from Caroline that you never wondered what it cost me to give it in the first place. I walked toward the front door, then turned back to face them one final time. I survived because I had to, because I learned that the only person I could truly count on was myself. My business succeeded because I stopped trying to carry other people's responsibilities and started focusing on my own potential. Frances, please, my mother said, standing up and reaching toward me. Don't leave like this. We're family. We love you. I paused at the threshold, my hand on the doorknob. You know what I've learned about family over the past 2 years? Real family supports you even when it's inconvenient. Real family celebrates your successes without looking for ways to profit from them. Real family doesn't abandon you when you make hard choices and then show up with their hands out when those choices pay off. Caroline had tears in her eyes. So you're just going to shut us out forever after everything we've been through? I'm not shutting you out. I'm just done pretending that our relationship is something it's not. You want to be family? Then be family. Call me because you want to know how I'm doing, not because you want something from me. Support my choices, even when they don't benefit you directly. Show up for me the way you expected me to show up for you. I opened the door and stepped out into the cool Portland evening. The air smelled like rain and autumn leaves, clean and fresh after the stifling atmosphere inside. Family helps family, I called back to them one last time, but it goes both ways. I never heard from them again, at least not in the way they'd been calling. The desperate phone calls and transparent reconciliation attempts stopped completely. My mother sends birthday cards now, brief and polite messages wishing me well. Caroline sends occasional texts updating me on her life. She found a job with a property management company and seems to be doing okay financially. My father forwards business articles he thinks might interest me, usually with short notes like, "Thought you'd find this interesting." And me? I keep building the life I fought for. A life where my worth isn't measured by how much I can sacrifice for others, but by the strength of what I've created on my own.